Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 45 of the Nope Coach podcast. I'm your host, Suzanne Kohlberg. And what will they think? At the time of recording this episode, I've just got home from the kids' sports carnival. I'm very red in the face, which I find hilarious because I did not run or jump or leap, but I was quite vocally on the sideline. So I'm surprised I even have a voice to record this episode. But the topic of what will they think is something that comes up a lot with the people that I work with. And it's funny, on the edge of my kids' sports carnival today, it crossed my mind for a moment as I was yelling and jumping and cheering and waving and hanging over the balustrade. And I was like, oh my goodness, what will the other kids think? Like, is my daughter going to be embarrassed? But then when we have those what will they think moments, who is the they we are referring to? Because a lot of us hold ourselves back from doing things because of the elusive they. When I have this thought, and I did have that thought today, I come back to Brene Brown. I think it was in Daring Greatly. If you haven't read Brene Brown, all of her books are fabulous. But in one of them, and as I said, don't quote me, but I think it's Daring Greatly, she suggests that you take a 1 inch, so those in Australia, 2.5 by 2.5 square piece of paper. So it's pretty tiny. And then on this piece of paper, you make a list of all the people whose opinions matter to you, the people who love you, not in spite of, but because of your vulnerabilities, because of your imperfections. And the thing that Brene Brown says, that if you need a bigger piece of paper, then you need to edit. So as I was thinking today, like, what will they think? Yelling, screaming, whatever. Whose opinion mattered to me in that moment? My daughter's. She was the one I was there to cheer on. She was the one I was there to celebrate and encourage. What the other kids thought of me meant nothing. And where I ended up being positioned, it was just in front of the long jump. So I saw a couple of my daughter's friends and I cheered them on too. And at the end of the day, as I was picking my daughter up, she was like, Mummy, you couldn't miss you. And I was like, oh, like, was I a bit OTT? And she's like, no, it was fabulous. I loved it. And a couple of her friends had said, like, your mum, she's a bit extra. And Xanthi's like, yeah, I know, isn't it great? So when we have the what will they think moments, who's thinking? Like, who are the they? And do we even mind what they think really? Because when we do fall back into people-pleasing patterns and, trying to be plain and not stand out and whatever, we hold ourselves back and we prevent ourselves from being truly ourselves. And, whenever I find myself falling back into the habits of being younger, of, caring too much about what they will think, the elusive they, I literally get out my piece of paper and remind myself, these are the people's whose opinions matter to me and not anyone else. And if you do this literally on the piece of paper, I have 4 names. The number 1 name is my own, because I think so many of us, when we fall into people-pleasing patterns, are so worried about what everybody else thinks that we don't even take into account what we think and what we like and what lights us up. And whatever it is that you're doing, so it may not be yelling and cheering at a kids' sports carnival. It could be releasing a piece of writing. It could be starting your own podcast. It could be being interviewed, writing a post on social media. So many things that you may hold yourself back from because of fear of what others think. What do you think? Why do you do the things that you do? Do you enjoy them? Does it light you up? Self first isn't selfish. And, we spend a lot of our time working. And if we spend all the time doing stuff that we despise, or putting on a mask, or pretending to be somebody that we aren't, to placate the elusive they, it's a long time to put on a mask and put on a show. And I know in my life, when I did that, as soon as work finished, as soon as I got home, as soon as I, took off my fancy duds, it was straight into the diving deep into chocolate or ice cream or, whatever your numbing thing is, because you've tried so hard all day to please everybody that you haven't taken care of your needs at all. And then you feel that void with shadow comforts for food or alcohol or numbing out in some way. Whereas when you get to be you in whatever way, shape, or form all day, every day, regardless of what they think, then there's little need to fall into those numbing things, because you're not avoiding the void. You're sitting with the discomfort. Like, there was a moment today where my daughter said what her friend said, that I was like, oh, did I take it too far? Did I yell too loud? Like, was I too much? And she loved it. And I was like, oh, okay. And there are times where maybe the people you are hanging out with, it is too much for them, and that is a discussion that you need to have. But who is on your list? And you get to revise that often. And yeah, often the people that are they are people whose opinions of you really don't matter all that much anyway. So my advice for you today, whenever you have a moment of what will they think, ask yourself, who is the they, first of all, and would they make the list? If you only had a 1-inch square piece of paper, 2.5 centimeters by 2.5 centimeters, you can probably fit 4, maybe 5 names on there. And one of those names, name number one, I encourage you to be your own. Are these they even on that list? Because if they're not, what does it matter what they think? Anywho, hope you've enjoyed this episode. If you are liking these episodes, I really do encourage you to share them up or to comment on them on YouTube. If you're not a sharer, I understand. But if you come across to my YouTube channel, if you just search Suzanne Kohlberg YouTube, you'll find it. There's a playlist of all the episodes there. As you listen through to them, just a comment about what you found useful, or that you enjoyed it. Any sort of comment, any sort of following on YouTube really helps the algorithm, which means that I get to reach more people. A lot of people are like, oh, I don't know how to support small business. The best way to support small business, share their stuff, comment on their stuff, like their stuff, subscribe to their stuff, because that allows the social media channels to share it, to show it to more people. So I really would appreciate, any video that you watch, any comment. Like, people often get in their heads like, I don't know what to say. You could just say, that I enjoyed this, or thanks for this, or got, whatever. The comment, whatever you feel called to. Don't overthink it. And yeah. And if you have any episode suggestions, maybe you could comment on the video or send me an email, info@suzannekohlberg.com. What would you like to hear? I take all suggestions under advisement, and you never know, could be coming up on an episode soon. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you on the next one. Bye for now.